Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this summer, while we were here on the farm, there was a
Derecho. Derecho. Derecho.
the Derecho. It came through. We didn't know what it was at the time. We found out later. It was a beautiful day, and we were moving some fencing for the sheep. The whole family was helping, and everybody had a job, and we had just finished up. It was a beautiful day out.
So this is like mid-afternoon.
Late afternoon.
Like 3, 4 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, and so we're packing up. I was headed down to the barn to put fences away. I don't remember what Toby was putting away. He was putting away, I think he was putting away the tools, and so he was...
Like back at the shop?
No, he was coming here to the garden shed. Levi and Emmett were headed to the dumpster, throwing away some of the broken stakes that happened while we were moving the fence. So they were headed to the dumpster. I was heading down to the barn. Toby was heading back up to the garden shed, and I think you were checking water for animals or something, but you had London with you. And so while we were all dispersing to our destination, like the wind picked up really crazy.
It was really fast. It wasn't in the weather forecast. It turns out that this derecho thing is something that happens very rarely. Like the last one recorded in Colorado was umpteen years ago, like a long time ago. And they say they were saying it's 80 to 90 mile an hour type winds, and it's this stretch. And Colorado's kind of like this square, and you see them summarizing it, saying, "Yeah, it just kind of followed this stretch." And you see the other states surrounding it, but it was just kind of followed this stretch, and then it was over. The whole thing was what, 10 minutes?
10 or 15, yeah.
And then it's over and we're out of power.
So it was getting really windy. By the time I got from the yard to the barn, the wind, it was so bad, I couldn't even see.
It's kicking up dust all over the place, and leaves are getting blown off the trees. Stuff is just really starting to fly around, small stuff.
It was really strong, so I got into the barn area and threw the fences down and kind of cleaned my eyes out, and I looked back and you could see branches flying through the air and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a tornado? What in the world? So I peek out the door, but there's so much dust and stuff blowing around that I couldn't see anything, and so I had to turn back, clean my eyes out a little bit. But then I'm thinking, if it's this bad, all the kids are still outside, where is everybody? So I peek back out the door and I see Levi next to the neighbor's car, and he's curled up in a little ball against her tire. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go help him. I need to go get him. So I stepped out of the barn, to run up to get him, and I took a few steps, and I couldn't because it was too windy and there was so much dust, I couldn't see anything. So I had to turn around and go back in the barn. So I went back through the door, and I turned back around, and he wasn't there. It was the worst feeling ever, trying to get to your kid that you think is in danger and you can't get to them. I was panicking, oh my gosh, I gotta get out there, I gotta find him, make sure he doesn't weigh anything, he's so little. The wind might have picked him up and carried him away. Waiting for an opportunity to run out there, and it seems like it's died down just enough. So I just started running towards the house. The neighbor was coming out of her house and saying, "That big tree just fell and Toby's over there by the shed." And I'm thinking, what? Oh my gosh. And I gotta get in the house and make sure the other kids are in there. And so I run into the house, and all the kids are in there, and I just fell on my knees and started bawling because I was so I don't even know what the word is. I was just so happy to see them, so happy to see Levi, but that they were all in the house and they were fine. And then, they were like, "What's wrong, Mommy?" So they all kind of huddled around and were like, we're okay, it's okay, we're okay. So it turns out that Levi had crouched down by the tire and Emmett ran and threw everything in the dumpster. And when he was running back towards the house, he saw Levi curled up against the tire and he grabbed him and brought him into the house. And then London was with him. And then Toby said he was out here in the garden and he didn't know what to do because it got so bad. So he crawled under the shed that we had just finished building, basically, maybe a 2-foot gap underneath. So he had crawled under the shed and just waited until it died down, and then he ran up to the house. And from the house, the cottonwood, the giant cottonwood that fell is huge. But from the house, it looks like it's a lot closer to the shed than it actually is. So that was super scary. I was just thankful that they were all in the house. And then I was just like, you know, the aftermath of just kind of everybody's okay, but that was super scary. Like, I don't like wind.
It can be emotionally taxing. It can be hard to work through those things, but
Work through what things?
Work through the emotions of something like the wind. Even like in that first few days after, if the wind starts blowing again, you think, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if we're going to have more trees down or, you know, stay away from the trees. But our trust is in God, and that helps us.
And then we started walking around to see what else had fallen.
Something just came through. Crazy wind, and a small tornado. Lift off the plastic up here. I'm going out to look. One of the giant cottonwoods fell across the road. So currently we're out of power. So we're not sure if it was a tiny tornado or not, but it took out a few of our trees. You can see all this. Giant cottonwood. Fell. Took down the power line. You can see it pulling right here. It's coming down. Hit one of the poles.
The big cottonwood that fell came across the road, and it also hit the power line and knocked out the power. So we're like, oh great, we're trapped and we don't have power, we can't get in or out. There's a pretty large tree in the back that has 3 trees coming out of the base. 2 of those fell. Actually, one of them fell, and a second one fell
The next day.
And then there was another one, and there was 2 other ones in the back that fell. One that was pretty much dead anyways, that one had fallen. So luckily, like, it fell over an old shed that we're gonna tear down eventually anyways, and it hit a piece of one of the fences in the back. So it really wasn't like huge damage, but it was pretty cool, just the trees itself when it fell. Like, it was actually kind of pretty because it was just like this huge oasis of leaves, you know, filling up the yard, and then you go underneath and it's just really cool to look at.
That is history. All the poles ripped through and the flies destroyed.
Oh, it's still there, but
It's still there, but it's ripped. Wow. Stand over there, it's really cool.
There's one right there that fell the other way. Here's this guy. This is in the back. It's a little oasis back here. Kind of pretty for a second. Oh, it's that one. Oh my. See that one? Ripped right there. Which I'm guessing caused that one to fall through. Wow. That is crazy. Is there any over here that fell? No. So it crushed that one. And then this one ripped up right here. Fell right through the fence. And the tent is in shambles. They should have cleaned that up right when they were done with it. Unfortunately. That is a bummer. That was a nice tent. Here's around back of the shop. That one fell over behind the fence. I think half of that was already dead though, which is fine. Doesn't look like there's much damage back here. God's pruning out some of the hazardous trees, I suppose.
So that was pretty scary. After that, Derecho hit us. Poor Levi, every time he went outside, he would put ski goggles on and a hat just in case it got windy. He did that for a couple of weeks and then finally got over that fear. But so yeah, every time it's really windy now, we're always like, stay away from the trees. But the cool thing about all of that, and the next day we had a few friends come with their chainsaws, bobcat things, and I just figured they were gonna kind of try to make a gap for us to be able to get in and out, and they ended up literally chopping the whole cottonwood up and pushing it to the side of the road within a couple hours. And then they went to the back and they chopped the other tree up, and then we drug all the branches into a pile. And then we ended up renting a chipper. And we just fed all the branches through the chipper, so now we have a huge pile of mulch, which will come in handy for future projects on the farm. It was just really cool to see the friends come and just spend their day helping. And I was amazed at how quickly we got all of it cleaned up.
All in all, we consider it a great blessing to have these trees taken down in a safe way. Nobody was hurt. There was no significant property damage. There were no animals. There were no housing issues. And what a huge blessing. We got thousands and thousands of pounds of wood that are falling among these few trees.
It was one of the scariest 10 minutes of my life.
Yeah, it was pretty significant.
So we'll pray that no more derechos.
Or that if they do, that the rest of the trees that we need to take down come down in the right direction. And God's pretty good at taking down trees.
That was a eventful thing on our Farm Ranch Homestead this year. Hopefully we have more lighthearted adventures to come.
We have plenty of lighthearted adventures. Good job. What if we were thinking about a 1-minute version? What would you say in a 1-minute version? Scariest 10 minutes of my life. 89 mile-an-hour winds, never been in there before. Took down a bunch of trees, friends came and helped us, nobody was hurt.
You can watch the 10-second version or the 10-minute version. You choose. Yeah, scariest 10 minutes that I can remember, besides the missing the train in Europe.
Good call.
That was another scary moment.